Since we're at a sales and marketing conference, I wanted to start off with a real life story. This is an experience that my brother had. He's an entrepreneur and he's in the process of growing his business. Fortunately, things are going pretty well. So he decided that he wanted to invest in some telesales software. And as in the course of that, he started to pay attention to all of these emails that he got. And turns out there was a telesales software vendor out there that happened to have his number and started to send him email. Now, when he dialed in and he started looking at this email, he realized it probably wasn't for him because the email was really oriented towards large companies. He, of course, was a startup, so he promptly dismissed the email. Sure enough, a few days later, a new email arrived in his inbox. Unfortunately, again, targeting large companies. And pretty soon he got really good at dismissing these emails when they came into his inbox. Unfortunately for him, on the back end of that, he was no match for the mail bot that continued to serve email to him time and time again, until if he wouldn't have been careful about his email hygiene, it would have filled up his entire inbox. So finally he acquiesced. Actually, what got his attention was this free trial offer. And he said to himself, how bad could it be? Maybe it's for big companies, but if it's free, I'll give it a try, and if it doesn't work out, I'll just cancel. So he clicked on the button, and almost immediately, he gets a phone call. And the person on the other end is a sales representative. He said, how did they do this? I clicked on the button on my email, and suddenly my phone rings. It's like magic. Then he started to have the conversation. I'm interested in your free trial. I'd like to, and before he could even finish his sentence, the person goes, whoa, hold on, free trial? He said, yeah, I'm interested in the free trial in the email. And literally he could hear the person on the other end of the phone, didn't even use the mute button. Apparently they had the capabilities to automate email distribution and call, but they didn't have a mute button because he heard this person cover up the phone and say to her neighbor, do we have any kind of a free trial going right now? And there was some back and forth, and she got back on the phone and she said, hey, I don't know about the free trial, but let me tell you what I can do for you today. And at that point, he promptly hung up. Now, this salesperson was not to be deterred. She continued to call back, as did her colleagues. And what was really frustrating is that every time a new person called in, it was like they didn't work at the same company because they all asked the same questions. So again, he hangs up, and finally, these people leave him alone. Now, if you were to ask someone to keep score of this experience, you would get a different score depending on who you talk to. If you talk to marketing, they would say +1 for marketing. We got a lead, we delivered it to sales, job done. If you were to talk to sales, they would say, yeah, it's a neutral. We called them up, wasn't qualified, no harm, no foul. If you talk to my brother, he would say, not only was it a bad experience, but I actually really enjoyed the opportunity to share this experience with all of my friends who, by the way, are startup entrepreneurs, and now they all know about the story, and the VCs know about the story, and everybody now that gets a phone call from this company has my story in mind. So it wasn't just one bad experience, it was a bad experience multiplied, ripple effect. Now, the reality is all of us probably have a story like this that we can relate. Unfortunately, many of us, I will number myself among those, have been the purveyors of these kinds of experiences. And in the past, it may have been kind of annoying, but it wasn't necessarily a fatal flaw. But here's what's changed. We have a car company on the scene called Tesla. And Tesla was actually the company that sold my brother a car about the time he was interacting with this telesales company. And this is what happened when he started to interact with Tesla. He went into a beautiful showroom, and on the website he was able to customize his car. He brought his kids in, and it was a great experience. As soon as he customized his car, he started getting updates. He could literally see how the car was being built. He was part of a community, and when the car was finished, he didn't go pick it up. The car actually magically arrived in his driveway. What's more, when the car's broken, he doesn't even realize it's broken. Somebody from Tesla just shows up and says, hey, your car's broken. Here's another one while we fix it. We'll bring it back when we're done. Amazing experience. Now, I don't own a Tesla, but I do watch Netflix. And when I log into Netflix, I have a Tesla-like experience. Netflix knows who I am. They know what I like to watch. They know what other people like me like to watch. They tell me, these are the shows, Justin, that you should be watching. And what's amazing is Netflix is usually right. And I could go on and on and on about all the experiences that we have that are amazing experiences and draw into stark contrast that experience that my brother had with the telesales company. So here's the corollary. We're not just compared to our competitors anymore. We're compared to every single customer experience we've ever had. And that means the bar just got a lot higher. And whereas before it might have been acceptable to deliver a bad customer experience because our competitors were doing that, no longer is that appropriate. There's some really interesting research out there around how much money is being wasted every year because of poor sales and marketing alignment. This stat is from Callidus Cloud. They took a look at all the leads that were wasted because they weren't followed up on. They took a look at all the deals that were lost because sales got in marketing's way or vice versa. They took a look at all the systems that were not working together and all the money that had to be thrown at that to fix the problems. It came out to be $1 trillion annually in the United States alone. So this has real dollars associated with it. And if we can solve it, it has real dollars that will drop to our bottom line and continue to propel our top line. So that's the problem that I want to talk to you today. First of all, why is it that it's so hard to break this bad cycle of sales and marketing not working together? And more importantly, how do we fix it? So I want to propose that there are actually 3 components to really getting sales and marketing to work together effectively. There's got to be some kind of unified understanding of who the customers are. There's got to be an orchestration of what sales and marketing are doing. And we need to get smarter every time we work together. So let's go ahead and look at this first idea of the universal or the unified customer view. All right. If you were to ask a marketer today where their data lives, they'd say it lives in a DMP. I have this data management platform. It's amazing. I put all my information in there. I can get it out anytime I need it. And I have a marketing and automation system like Eloqua or Marketo that sits on top of it, and I'm in business. If you ask the same question to the salesperson, they say, well, I have a CRM system, of course, and that's where all my data lives. And here's the problem. The DMP has all the demographic information, and we think about segments and campaigns, and the CRM system has all of the information about territories, and we think about opportunities and deals, and the twain shall never meet. So it's little wonder that if we're not sitting on the same data and we're not looking at the same data, it's really hard for us to have a unified experience that we can serve up to the customers. So we did some really interesting research at LinkedIn. We have a sales product, we have a marketing product that are used within the same organizations. We said, wouldn't it be interesting if we looked at how salespeople were using our products and how marketing people were using our products? More specifically, who are they talking to through our products and how much overlap is there? Now this is a hard analysis, again, because usually the systems are separate. In the case of LinkedIn, they're the same systems. So we went to a customer and we pulled the data, and what we found is that for this particular company, Company X, to protect the innocent, the marketing team was going after about 6 million folks, 6 million members in the LinkedIn database. Sales had connections into about 200,000 members of the LinkedIn database, and there was about a 23% overlap between the two. In other words, 75% of the people that marketing was touching, sales was not in contact with, and vice versa. So that's a problem. Why aren't marketing and sales talking to the same people? It gets even worse. Our product, which is called Sales Navigator, is where you can actually track the people that salespeople are actively in dialogue with to close business. And when you look at the overlap there, what you discover is it's even worse, 9%. So in this particular case, there were 17,000 contacts that were involved in deals. salespeople trying to get done those deals. And only 9% of them were being touched by marketing. Think of all the money being left on the table. If marketing could simply reach out to those 17,000 people and support the sales team, please, but it's not happening. The other thing that's interesting is if you look at the overlap in terms of the key segments that companies care about. So we have a lot of consultants at our company. We think about 2x2s, which is the classic consulting way to view the world. If you were to put sales engagement on the y-axis and marketing engagement on the x-axis, in the lower left-hand corner, that's a bad place to be, because that means salespeople aren't touching your folks and marketing isn't touching your folk. What you really want is to be up in the upper right-hand corner. That means that you've got deep penetration on both the sales side and the marketing side. So for this particular customer, we said, who are your top segments? Who do you care most about? And we'll tell you the degree of penetration you have from a marketing perspective and a sales perspective. And this is what we learned. So in this particular case, they really cared about business development managers. They cared about IT decision makers and affluent millennials. And what we discovered is that they had very low penetration from a marketing perspective in any of these segments. Now, sales, they were doing a little bit better, but still, if you look at affluent millennials, they've got like 6% penetration in this particular segment. You would hope that you'd be up and to the right, but that's not the case. Why is this happening? Because sales and marketing haven't come together and said, these are the segments we care about, here's how we'll jointly target them, and here's the systems and tools we'll use to do that. What gets even more disconcerting is if you compare this company to the peers that it's competing against. The peers are doing better. They've got deeper penetration in both sales and marketing, and best in class, they're doing even better than that. When you start to view the world through this lens, it really opens up opportunities and perspectives. You start to realize that the name of the game here is joint coverage of sales and marketing working together. And in order to make that happen, you've got to have some kind of an integrated system that both sides of the house are working out of. All right, let's talk about the second thing that needs to happen for marketing and sales to align: process orchestration. If I were to ask a marketer today to draw a picture of the world, they would draw me, of course, a funnel. And if I were to ask the salespeople, draw me a picture of the world, of course they would draw me a pipeline. Does anyone see a problem with this? We can't even agree on what the picture looks like. Is it a pipeline or is it a funnel? Is it up and down or is it left and right? I don't know, but let's just figure it out because it doesn't really matter. And yet, both sales and marketing continue to see the world in a completely different way. When we talk about sales and marketing alignment today, usually what we talk about is how fast can we hand that lead off to sales so that sales can work on it. There's no conversation about how do we create an integrated customer experience. There's no discussion about how do sales support marketing and vice versa. It is simply, I got a lead, let me get it over to sales as fast as possible. Remember the story of my brother? As soon as he clicked that CTA, boom, that's a lead, and he gets a call from a salesperson, and we're aligned. And yet think about the experience that he had. So this clearly is a flawed approach. And this is an approach that has generated literally billions of dollars annually. Think about your own companies. How much have you spent to weave together sales and marketing systems? What have you spent on middleware? What have you spent on consultants? I need to be careful because I'm an Oracle alum, so we made a lot of money off of this problem. But the fact of the matter is, integration alone just gets you a faster handoff, and as I said before, the automation at scale is just massive alienation. So we really need to rethink the whole process before we just think about weaving together a pipeline and a funnel. This is what it should look like. Marketing and sales need to be together, and they need to always be acting in concert. On the right-hand side of this dial, you've got what I call the executional elements of a sales deal. Starts with awareness and it goes down to the close. And on the left-hand side of the deal, this is where all of the planning happens. And there's some really exciting things that can happen when sales and marketing work together across all facets of that deal execution. Now, most of us would say, wait a second, Marketing is in charge of awareness and brand building, not sales. And sales is in charge of closing a deal, not marketing. But the world is changing. It's changing in some very interesting ways. Let me give you a couple of examples. Let's start with the awareness. So historically, that is the domain squarely of marketing. Well, recently, buyers have said, we care a lot less about marketing advertising, and we care a lot more about native content. This is the content that users generate that's authentic, that actually has substance and teaches us something. And guess who can generate native content? Your salespeople can, all of your employees. It's driven the rise of what we call employee advocacy. And what employee advocacy means is that employees can push out content that can be consumed by the people that you want to get in touch with, build your brand, and suddenly you're a known entity. And there's lots of employee advocacy platforms out there. I'm going to be a little bit biased here, but I will certainly pay homage to lots of other folks out there. We have a product called LinkedIn Elevate, a very simple product where marketing curates a set of documents, and those could be generated by the sales team and distributes them to all of the employees in a company. The employees can pick and choose which documents they want to send out through their social feeds, and then those reach all of the people that are connected with that individual. What's interesting is we've actually been able to track the impact this has on brand awareness, recognition, and sentiment. And people that are touched by employee-distributed content have a much better perception of a brand, much higher recall of a brand, much higher recognition of a brand. So very exciting. All right, second thing I want to talk about is when you're actually trying to close a deal. Again, this is the domain of the sales team, right? Well, actually, not necessarily. Imagine that procurement is about to go into a negotiation with your sales officer. And just before that negotiation starts, that procurement individual gets a well-timed email with information about the value that the solution they're about to negotiate for is able to drive at other companies. There's a case study in there. There's some references in there. That procurement officer is probably going to be less inclined to negotiate as hard as they otherwise would if they didn't see the value of it. And that's an example of how marketing can get engaged in a sales process in order to help to close that process. One more product that I will showcase is Point Drive. So the way Point Drive works, it's essentially a container. And marketing can populate that container with any kind of information that they'd like. Case studies, references, videos. And then they post those containers for sales to consume. Now when sales has a deal they're trying to close, they can go and pull off the shelf the appropriate container, and they can dismiss that or send that out to the person that they're dealing with. As soon as the person opens it up, they get a notification. Karen Smith is now reading this document. Karen Smith has now forwarded this document to another individual. So you're able to influence individuals, but you're also able to track the amount of influence that you're generating. Another great example of how sales and marketing can work in tandem to get the job done. All right, let's talk about the last component of the three-part play in order to bring sales and marketing together. It's what I call self-learning. Now, we've just been through a sales cycle together. Think about what we know that we didn't know before. First of all, we know about an account that actually wants to buy our products. And if we know that that account is interested, we could probably find accounts like that account that would also be interested. That's important information for marketing to know. Secondly, we know all the people that got involved in the deal, the buyer circle. And not only that, but we know when they got involved. There were 5 people involved. The head of sales got involved first, followed by the sales ops person, followed by procurement. And we know what we were able to use to engage them. That's information that's going to be valuable the next time through the process as well. We also know how long it took to close the deal. What if we could systematically capture all of that information and pump it back into the system? We'd be so much smarter the next time around. We'd be so much better at targeting accounts. Once we got into a deal, we'd be so much better at knowing who to target within the buyer circle and actually what to send them. And the more times we went through this process, assuming that we are using the new information we capture every time, the faster the sales cycle would run. Higher conversion rates, lower sales cycle times. That's the flywheel effect that starts to be generated as you're marrying the information caught during the execution phase with the information that you're consuming during the planning phase. So let me give you a really interesting example of how you can be smarter about the accounts that you target based on information that you've collected in the past. This is a chart of accounts, and we've added some information to this chart that is going to allow the sales team to prioritize the accounts. So a couple things that we know. First of all, we know industries that are resonating with this particular company. Many companies in the past have bought in this industry. Secondly, we've been able to use some analytics to identify key variables that are correlated with whether or not they're a customer. In this case, growth is a very strong indicator that they are going to be interested in our products and services. We can then go a step farther and say, which companies have the deepest penetration of contacts within our company? And using all of these factors, we can start to prioritize which accounts we might want to go after. So in this case, I'm going to look at, I've got this many relationships, and maybe I want to drill into these relationships. And once we've identified the accounts, we can then start to really get down to the brass tacks. Who is the buyer circle that is really going to get the deals done? And that's where you want to go, and you want to look at specific contacts within an account and start to think about who they are and how you can get access to them. The other thing that's different about the process here is that it's not sales in a room with their Excel spreadsheet, figuring out which accounts they care about, and then almost as an afterthought saying, oh, can somebody tell marketing that we need some of that ABM stuff for GE? Marketing's actually in the room. They've seen the account prioritization process. They've participated in it. They've contributed data. They've seen the buyer circles. They know who we're going after. And as a result of that, they're able to craft campaigns that are very much in line with the objectives that sales is trying to achieve. So if you think about this three-part formula to sales and marketing alignment, getting on the same page in terms of who we're targeting, having an orchestrated process, and mining data that we learn through the sales cycle to become smarter the next time around. This is an incredibly powerful formula that yields real dollars. Wheelhouse Advisors did some interesting analysis. They looked at companies that met or exceeded a benchmark of sales and marketing alignment. And what they found is that these companies outperformed their peer set. 208% uplift in revenue contributed by marketing relative to their peers. Now that's an astounding number. But if you think about it, it's actually the composite of many small things happening. These companies are able to get into more accounts. Of the accounts that they get into, they're able to close more deals. Of the deals that get closed, the lifetime value is actually greater. And each of those factors compounds upon the factor before it, and that's how you get to the 208% year-over-year, or 208% increase relative to peers. So there's real benefits. Now, this is a grandiose vision, I know. And there are a lot of different components to it, and every company is at a different place in the journey. The good news is that by focusing on these principles, even incremental improvement yields some pretty dramatic impact. So with that, I'd like to close, but we have a few minutes left, so I would love to take any questions that folks might have from the audience. I think we've got a microphone right here as well. Sorry, I'm going to make you stand up there.
I don't. Customer success, I'm surprised to not hear that mentioned at all in this conversation. I wonder if you could just speak to its role in surfacing back up to marketing and how you see that playing out.
It's a very fair question. So the question was, how does customer success play into this? And actually, I mentioned a little bit lifetime value of the customer, which is really impacted by customer success. When you're thinking holistically about not just capturing a customer, but retaining the customer and growing the customer over time, that's a tremendous way to grow revenue. So as part of the revenue cycle, when you go back into the planning phase, you say, okay, we acquired this company, now what can we do to actually expand? If you're squarely focused on buyer circles, you're able to identify new buyer circles within the account that you haven't known about before, or changes in the buyer circle. And in that way, you can continue to grow your footprint. But also, account maintenance is a lot like a plant. If it's not growing, it's dying. So the fact that you're expanding allows you to continue to create a healthy customer relationship. Other questions? Well, thank you very much. This is a favorite topic of mine. It is a challenging topic to take on, to be sure, but it's an exciting time to be in business because we now have access to technologies and capabilities and an understanding of customers that we didn't have before. So I wish all of you the best in your sales and marketing integrated journeys and look forward to talking soon. Thank you.